Something has shifted in the Joe Rogan universe, and most people have not fully clocked what it is yet. There is a man who sits across from Joe Rogan on his own show, on his own turf, in his own studio, and he openly roasts him, bullies him, pushes back on him, and calls him out. And Joe Rogan just sits there and takes it. He does not fire back. He does not defend himself the way he would with anybody else. He just absorbs it and moves the conversation along. That man is Shane Gillis. And what is happening between these two right now is one of the most interesting and most quietly significant things in the entire podcast world. Because it was not always like this. There was a time when Shane Gillis was the quiet guy in the room who was grateful to be there. There was a time when appearing on Joe Rogan's show was the biggest platform Shane had ever stood on. That time is gone. And the fact that Joe Rogan can sense that and that it has changed the dynamic between them in ways Joe cannot fully control is the real story that nobody is talking about.
It opens up the door for someone on the left to do their version of it.
Gavin Newsom, he's not going to put up a plaque.
Of course he would. Of course he would. He copies everything that Trump does. He even tries to talk like Trump on Twitter. You don't think that he would put up plaques that talk about how corrupt Trump was?
Yeah, but he doesn't have to put up a plaque. That'll just be...
To understand how significant this shift is, you need to understand where Shane Gillis was 5 years ago. In September 2019, Shane Gillis was announced as a new cast member for Saturday Night Live Season 45. He had been grinding the comedy circuit for years, starting out in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, moving to Philadelphia, winning Philly's Funniest at Helium Comedy Club in 2016, building a loyal audience through his podcast with Matt McCusker. SNL was supposed to be his arrival, his legitimate mainstream moment. And then, 4 days after the announcement, a clip surfaced of him on his podcast, using an anti-Asian slur, imitating a Chinese accent, making racist jokes. SNL fired him before he ever appeared on air. The statement from Lorne Michaels' office was short and cold. The language he used is offensive, hurtful, and unacceptable. That was it. No second chance. No conversation. Out the door before he ever walked through it. At that moment, most people assumed Shane Gillis was done before he had really started. And that is exactly when Joe Rogan stepped in. Rogan defended Gillis publicly, when almost nobody else in mainstream media would. He talked about him on the podcast, gave him a platform, brought him into the circle at a time when Shane's career options were genuinely limited. For a comedian who had just been canceled in the most public way possible, having Joe Rogan vouch for you was not a small thing. It was essentially a lifeline. The Rogans
They have like overreacting to stuff. They're like, oh, Saddam Hussein's a problem. Let's go in there and kill 1 million people.
Yeah, America does that.
Yeah, we're like not the best people to handle stuff, and we're like still like, we should handle it.
You know who else does that?
Who?
Israel. Blame everything on Israel.
I'm not blaming everything.
But the moment that really crystallized how much Shane has changed in this dynamic came on Christmas Day 2025, when JRE episode 2431 dropped. Shane brought up the White House plaques. For anyone who missed it, Trump had official plaques installed under portraits of previous presidents in the White House, not plaques written by historians or archivists. Plaques written in Trump's own voice that called Joe Biden, by far the worst president in American history, put radical left in capital letters, referred to Bill Clinton getting lucky with the economy because of the tech boom, and then mentioned that his wife tried to run against Trump and lost, and concluded with a statement that Trump would get re-elected in a landslide and save America, also in capital letters. These are not fringe internet posts. These are official plaques on the walls of the White House. And Shane Gillis read them out loud with Rogan and said out loud he is not beating the dictator charges. This is like an African dictatorship. Joe Rogan agreed in the moment. He called them crazy 3 separate times. But notice what Joe's instinct was as soon as the conversation got uncomfortable. He immediately pivoted to talking about what Gavin Newsom might do if he became president. He did not stay in the moment and sit with what was actually being described. He routed the discomfort through a hypothetical Democrat to make it easier to process. Shane did not do that. Shane called...
I heard about it. So his plaques under everybody's name?
Yeah, he's kind of trashing every other president.
And what is he?
It'll
he
write
trashes
like,
them all?
I saw the Andrew Jackson and Clinton ones. The Clinton one is like, basically like he kind of got lucky with the economy because of the tech boom. Also, then at the end, he's like, and then his wife tried to run against Donald Trump and lost.
That's a plaque? Yeah. Does it really say he got lucky? Like, who's writing these things? He's not writing them.
Sleepy Joe Biden.
Sleepy Joe Biden. It says
the worst
that?
president in American history.
Oh, my God. He is writing it. Look at this. Sleepy Joe Biden was by far the worst president in American history. This is so crazy. This is crazy. Nicknamed both Sleepy and Crooked by you. By nicknamed. Like the whole public got together. I got a name for this guy. Was dominated by his radical left handlers. Look how radical left is in caps too. You shouldn't be allowed to do this, right? It should be like historians say this guy was president from
what's it say at the end of that? Does it say Donald Trump saved America?
Despite all, President Trump would get reelected in a landslide and save America in all caps. That's a plaque in the White House.
He's not beating the dictator charges. This is like an African dictatorship.
Bro, this is crazy.
And this is the pattern that Shane has quietly been identifying and pushing back against across multiple episodes now. Every time Trump does something that even Joe Rogan can see is wrong, Joe's brain does not go to the thing that is happening right now. It goes to what Gavin Newsom might do in the future. The plaques are bad not because a sitting president is using the walls of the most powerful office in the world to call his predecessors sleepy and crooked, but because Newsom might do something similar if he ever gets there. The ICE agents with masks and no identification walking American streets are bad not because of what is happening to actual people right now, but because it sets a precedent that a future Democratic president could use. Joe Rogan can see all of these things clearly. He described the plaques as crazy. He went on a full rant about the slippery slope of masked federal agents with no ID. His instincts about what is wrong are still working, but he cannot land the criticism where it actually belongs, because landing it there would mean criticizing the man he endorsed, the man he texts, the man whose Oval Office he has visited and stood in. So every criticism gets rerouted through a hypothetical future. Democrats, specifically Newsom. The guy Rogan has a personal grudge against going back to California pandemic policies, and Shane Gillis keeps quietly, consistently refusing to let that sleight of hand slide.
Other people could do that too, and then the White House stops being the White House and it becomes whoever's in its house, where he could just go crazy and say everybody else is a crook.
I don't think anyone's going to do what he's doing. I don't think there's. I mean, look.
God, I hope not, but it opens up. The problem is it opens up the door for someone on the left to do their version of it.
Gavin Newsom, he's not going to put up a plaque.
Of course he would. Of course he would. He copies everything that Trump does. He even tries to talk like Trump on Twitter. You don't think that he would put up plaques that talk about how corrupt Trump was?
Yeah, but he doesn't have to put up a plaque. That'll just be everywhere.
I mean, but he could put that under his photo, though. Like, that's never been a thing that people did before.
On the most recent Protect Our Parks episode, Shane made his point even more clearly. The conversation moved to James Comey being arrested over a social media post with seashells, arranged in a pattern that could be interpreted as a call for violence against Trump. Shane's reaction was immediate and specific. He said what is happening right now with Comey arresting someone for a seashell photo is the problem itself, not a warning about what might happen later. Then he connected it directly to the ICE situation he had been trying to get Rogan to sit with. Agents in tactical gear, no identification, no badge numbers visible, arresting people on American streets. Shane said those 3 words that the podcast analysis says were the most important thing he said that episode. That's the worst. Not that might become the worst. That is the worst. Right now, the damage is not a future risk. It is a present reality. And every time Shane tries to make that point, Joe Rogan's brain immediately jumps to what Gavin Newsom might theoretically do in a future administration, and uses that hypothetical to avoid sitting in what is actually happening in the current one.
The plane, the cellmate tried to kill him. Yeah, we tried to strangle him to death.
Whoa.
and they found him unconscious
Must
and
use that
unresponsive.
Krav Maga to break out of it. Or Krav Maga, however you say it. Whatever they do.
Krav Maga.
Krav
Whatever
Maga.
they do.
Yeah.
They're still not releasing it.
Here's what's crazy. No arrests. No one's like being brought in. Meanwhile, Comey is getting arrested for a photo of seashells that say 8647.
He's getting arrested for that?
What's
he's
86?
getting charged.
What's 8647?
86, get rid of. President 47.
But you could say kill. But 86 is, if you get fired, what happened to Mike? He got 86th.
Right.
It doesn't mean you got killed.
Well, they already
Social-
had it out for him.
I know,
They're just
but
looking for any
that's
excuse.
This is
Oh,
the
yeah.
problem
No,
with these
100%.
guys is it sets a crazy precedent.
Yeah,
for them
Yes.
to
we'll
do
jump-
that.
we'll jump up
That's
some
the
charges.
precedent. That's the worst. Like, that's crazy. You
That's the
can't do that.
craziest one.
FBI
that's
director.
arrested
It's
all
like,
of the
oh, you went
precedent.
after me? Well, now we're going after you for
Yeah,
nothing. It doesn't
it's
matter.
Nuts. It's nuts. Like you're going after someone for something that's just silly.
It's crazy. Trump can take a shot, but not a joke.
It's just retaliation for going after Trump.
Well, it is, but it's like they're just looking for any reason. But it just doesn't seem. It seems like there should be other reasons. Like if the guy really was dirty, you should have something on him other than this seashell picture.
Yeah, it's not. He's not.
He just hates him, and he's using that.
I know, but it's such a
abuse of
this
power.
This was my
Of course.
thing when people weren't upset about ICE people in the street with masks on and no identification. I'm like, this sets a crazy precedent. You're
street.
setting a precedent for militarized people with 7 weeks training to be walking around with weapons of war and flak jackets with no ID and masks on. That's all I'm saying. Like, this is a slippery
And here is the part that makes the whole thing genuinely fascinating to watch. Joe Rogan knows that Shane is right. You can see it in how he responds. He does not push back on the substance of what Shane is saying. He does not make a case that the Comey arrest was justified or that the White House plaques are actually fine. He agrees with Shane and then immediately changes the subject or redirects to Newsom, because Joe Rogan in 2026 is not a free agent anymore. He texts the president. He visits the Oval Office. He got an executive order signed that fast-track research into the medicinal uses of psychedelics because he sent Trump a text explaining why it mattered, and Trump said, "Let's do it." He is embedded in this administration in a way that makes it genuinely impossible for him to criticize it directly without also criticizing himself, his judgment, and everything he told millions of people in the lead-up to the 2024 election.
the Oval Office early.
You were not wearing a suit? I didn't see
I
it.
had a jacket,
Oh,
a suit
alright.
jacket. I didn't have a tie. I was going to wear a tie, but I hate ties. I said, let me just dress like I dress at the UFC. It looks
man's
fine.
chain
So I
around
wore
your
my
neck.
UFC outfit.
So you were like Zelensky in a tracksuit.
No, I had a
Yeah,
nice
you're
button-up
Zelensky,
shirt,
dude.
nice pair of pants, nice dress shoes.
Yeah.
He's like showing me all the new gold work. The Oval Office has like gold everywhere now. It's like all gold leaf everywhere. It's pretty impressive.
Who designed it?
Paintings.
Persians?
Him.
Oh.
Yeah.
He loves
Well,
gold.
Definitely not the Persians.
Bin Laden loved gold.
He loves it. He like loves doing up the Oval Office.
Shane and I took a tour.
Yeah, I was
Me, you, and O'Connor.
what?
Yeah, we took
Of
a tour of the
what?
White House.
Biden
we did
years?
DC. No, it was
No,
Trump.
Trump years. He wasn't there, so we got in, but they were like, you can't go into the Oval Office. And we're like craning our head in. Saw the big Gulf of America poster.
Oh, this is back. Yeah, he had literally just had a map next to his desk that says Gulf of America. You're like,
It's a map of water.
God, especially because you're like walking through and you're like, damn, Lincoln.
There's a lot
You're
of
looking at all
history
these cool
here.
things, and then you
Okay.
see Gulf of America next to the desk, and you're like,
Hey,